Welcome to the Dental and Mental Podcast.
We are going to be talking to you about the business and the mindset of dentistry.
All right, welcome to part two. We're moving into a part two because I really wanted to ask you, back from the last podcast, you're talking about for this next mountain that you want to climb, it's reducing your days practicing at Vita from 3 to 2, but not reducing production.
Yeah.
Which may require bringing on another associate. So right now, you and Devin just brought on Greg and considering bringing on a fourth doctor, a fourth provider.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like? Because we had this conversation a lot this weekend in Exit about bringing in an associate and the systems and structures that need to be in place to be able to make that decision.
Right. I think it always comes back to the same sort of like archetypal question, which you don't ever answer just once and be done with it. It's a ever-evolving question, which is, what do you really want? What can you get your energy and kinetics behind?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, I want to take a vacation to Italy. You can do that, and that's not a life-fulfilling purpose. It's like, what's the thing that's going to drive you each day to potentially go to bed late and wake up early and pour heart and soul into that thing? Because that's
don't downplay Italy. That would get
that'll get some people out of bed,
exactly,
including my wife.
Yeah, exactly.
True story. True story. So we have to start with that question, and you answer for yourself first. Then the people that are most relevant to that question, it's good to ask them as well what they were looking for. So when I really sat down with what I wanted is I wanted fewer days at Vita so I could focus more on Thrive. That was kind of like the first piece. It's like, I really enjoy what I'm doing. And at one point in time, for those of you out there who are like, you're going from 3 to 2, like, do you even work, bro? Valid question. There were plenty of times because it vacillated between like 4 days to 6 days, where you and I were working Saturdays. We were working 6 days a week as dentists, because we were building something and it required that. So I've worked that before. I've worked 5, worked 4, worked 3. And it's just that next evolution for me. So I said 2 for that, and then pouring a lot more time and energy into dentists and helping them. To do that then required a kind of another level question, which is, all right, that's a pretty easy thing to do provided you have help and you don't care about the money, right? Those are usually the 2 things. I got to take care of my patients, and if I don't care about the money, then cut it down tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have those 2 things, then you have to start to ask some questions. So for me, it's not, I don't need the income for that for the third day, dropping down to 2. But I like the challenge. I love the challenge. And I also know that to do that, I have to almost purify the procedural types that I'm doing to do that.
Because you're still part of, you have a partner.
So a partner.
You have a business. There are lots of people that are employed by Vita. So it's like, you can't just, even if you were like, I just want to like ditch out or whatever, everything that is supported by Vita still needs to be supported. Correct.
Yep. We have a very sizable team at the time there was 13 of us, and then the 2 doctors with just Devin and I. And then we've added an employee and then our associate. So we're at 14 and 3 docs. It's a pretty good sized machine, But do I do only the types of dentistry that I love doing? No. I will treat a lot of what I love, but there's still plenty of things that I do that need to be done. That patient needs that. It's great for production. It's good for the schedule. That person's in pain, whatever it is, we take care of it. I would like to purify my schedule more. And what's cool about this equation, as it were, is when you really ask the question, what do I really want? And then you ask the other people around you, what do you really want? You actually find that there is a solution that gives everybody what they want. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that. I don't think that you're either with the wrong person, or if you're with the right people, it's always going to work together. So I talked to Devin, and Devin's like, I want to work 2 days. I'm like, okay, even better. All right, so we both want to work 2 days. We got to keep the production up. How are we going to do that? Oh, well, I would like to take some CE around this. I'd like to do some CE around that. Okay, we can really focus now on the things that we love, which means we're seeing fewer people, which means more room for Greg, our associate. You get to see more people. What does he want? He wants good income, right? He came from this job. He came to this one. Now he's working at Vita. I want to keep my production high. Great. We can give you more people now. But it also means that there's even more people now than just what Greg can handle. So we get the opportunity to bring on a fourth doctor. And that's what Devin and I are looking at right now. It gets to be this very symbiotic relationship, but that doesn't come without its fair share of challenges. To become more productive per hour, that is the challenge. And so I'm going to have to be even better at case acceptance. My team's going to have to support and seed treatment better than they do right now. Providers have to be able to cross-refer to one another. And then that also means we have to further specialize so that Devin knows what I do. I know what Devin does. Devin knows what Greg does, right? And so those roles are very, very clear. Your marketing has to change. Even the user experience, right? That customer coming through, it has to have a different feel for different parts of the practice.
Right.
And then there's always that calibration of philosophy. And you can always get better at that. I teach that heavily in Credo, teach it heavily in the lab. It is so important to calibrate as providers. If it's just you make your choice. Actually, it's good for a solo provider too. You see a tooth. How many times as a dentist, raise your virtual hand, you're looking in a mouth, you see an amalgam, it's a certain size. You see it in the next mouth and you see it in another mouth. In those three mouths, you're thinking about it differently.
Right.
It's the environment, it's the way you're looking at it, it's the time of the day, it's all that, and you actually treatment plan differently. I'm not saying it should always have the exact same treatment plan, but it should have an integrity of the whole. It should be very, very similar. And what I find with dentists is one person gets a crown and another person, we're going to watch it. Those are really different, right? So calibration, not just with you, but amongst providers. So that's one of the big systems that we work on. And then just making things simpler. The more confusion there is with a larger machine, the more balls get dropped. So those are really big challenges for me. But then it also gets to win for dentists. Because as we grow as a practice, there's other dentists like the ones that we just worked with who are like, well, I want to grow and I want to further specialize. So what do I need to do? And so then there's that conversation. Like, do you need to bring on an associate? Do you need to bring on somebody else? If you do, how do we train them? How do we find that person? How do you do more of what you want to do? What does your marketing need to look like? Well, I've climbed that mountain. And now I'm just climbing it again and again and like almost higher up,
Yeah.
Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, it does. I think it's really, I'm picking up on the opportunities for associates too, because of what I said. People coming out of dental school, the more these practices rise, that creates an opportunity. Like, how cool would it be to be an associate in either one of the doctor's practices that we were talking about this weekend, right? Like, that would be incredible, where you get to go and stack under this person that already thinks differently, has beautiful flow, loves their patients, and you get to adopt all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even just being around a person that thinks differently, how much fun is that? You and I talk about this like with friends. There's certain friends that you'll hang out with, more like acquaintances, where, the conversations are boring because it's an LLM, right? It's a language learning model. They're just repeating what they've been training themselves. It's honestly, they probably didn't have to think about what they said. The questions they asked you, didn't have to think about it. It's just a repeat. But then you're around people who are really creative and they're doing fun things and they think differently.
How many times do you ever ask Devin a question and you can predict what he's going to say?
Almost never. Almost never. I think the way that Devin's brain works, no one can know. And that's the fun of it. You ask him questions about business or family or being married or whatever it is, you will never get a response that you expect, which makes you think, which just the conversations go places you never anticipated. That's fun. That's like the beauty of life. And it's one of the reasons why I love practicing with them. It has its other sides where sometimes you're like, it'd be nice to just kind of know for once what you're going to say. But I love it. And the staff list, there's an energy around it. And so, yeah, with friends, we see that. With dentists who think differently, I can't imagine a better benefit, actually, as a young practitioner. Because otherwise, let me just tell you what you're going to do. You're going to get plugged into the system. And you're going to be in a system that will chew you up and spit you out. And you'll look the exact same as every other person that went through that system. While there's safety, quote unquote, in that, because it's done all the time on repeat, rinse and repeat, you will not, unfortunately, accomplish any of the things that you set out in your early years to accomplish. You just won't, and it's sad.
Right.
So team up with some docs like we just worked with. Right?
Yeah, as an associate coming out of school, like what a and
revolutionizing hygiene. What about completely revolutionizing the way that we approach perio? I mean, she's brilliant. I love what she's doing.
And it's really a double blessing, right? Because then the person who is niche, the practice owner, gets to also then start to specialize and gets to move into helping more people that are specific to their niche. I mean, and this isn't even for like new docs. When we went out to Iowa and we saw Vios, I text Cody and Allison a little later and I was like, guys, I think I might be your associate. I think
I'm getting back in the ring, baby.
I think I might.
All right.
But that also, like, it's a joke, but it's not.
Yep.
There's something about seeing a practice that's doing things so cool that it's that feeling that you had when you wanted to be a dentist anyway. Like, oh gosh, I can't wait to do that for myself.
Well, you and I got on a kick, right, of watching these like tech startup failures.
Yeah.
Right. So we watched Titan, the submersible one, and then we watched was it We Crashed? No, Dropout. The Dropout, and we watched We Crashed. And it's so fascinating to see the energy that these young employees have in these tech startups. And that's the thing that you take away from that as the positive, which is someone was thinking about something totally different. Now, like in a couple of scenarios, the technology was not there at all, right? Like, what are we doing here? But there was such a vibrancy of thought and creativity and like, let's do something no one's ever done. And when asked, a lot of these employees are like, it was a fun was it crazy? Yeah. Were there times where I wondered if this thing was going to fail and if it was even right or ethical? Yeah. But there was a part of them that was always like, I got to be free. I got to think. I got to be a part of something much larger than me. That is I think a strong suit in a lot of the practice that we work with. They're doing something that most people are not brave enough to do.
Right.
Vios is one of those. It's incredible.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Dental and Mental Podcast and this topic resonated with you, we go so much deeper inside the Thrive Lab.
So if you too want to be copied but not replicated, come join us in the lab.
And just for you, because you listen to the podcast, if you want a full $1,200 off of the year-long subscription, just use coupon code podcast. See you then. What do you think a person like this that's listening to this, that's kind of sitting there and saying, I'm stuck. That's the way I feel. I feel like I have too much on my plate, but also not enough of the stuff that I want. And I'm not even sure what the first step is. What's something you give to them?
I think the first step is, it's always the same. It's being honest about what it is that you really want. Because a lot of times that question, and we've talked about that a lot on this podcast, the question is answered from what do I think I can achieve, not necessarily what is it that I want.
Right.
And that may be really terrifying if you actually admit to yourself that you do want, you want what you want.
Interesting. Okay, so is it fair to say that people answer from a place of like what they can see versus what they can't see or what they have to imagine? Like you assume that if you can see it, whatever you've seen around you, or I'm saying like practice models, whatever, right? That's what they see as achievable. They're never really going to a place where like the evidence isn't there yet.
Right. I think, yes. So I think for a lot of the docs that are in Thrive, they're already know that what they want, they haven't been able to see. So they're the first through the door. They're the ones building it.
Talk about, so I mean, I know you've given the story just a little bit on this podcast, but talk a little bit about your upbringing and like you getting out of a city and a town where no one else was doing what you were doing. That's a great example of like, you had this like very stirring vision. You worked in dentistry early on, really early on. I don't know how old you were. It's probably illegal.
16.
We don't know.
Oh yeah, I was 16.
And you could have easily been like, I'm going to be an assistant, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's great. We all need assistants. But like you could have stayed there, and your potential was much beyond that. But you could have just looked at what was around you, and that's what you're going to do. What was the spark for you to think, I want to go beyond that?
I think it's what I was saying earlier. You have to really watch what you feed your head, right? So there's enough places that will tell you you can't do what you want to do. So it's very intentional to be able to block out all of those things. Like you have to actively block out those things. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I've said this on the podcast, but I've told you, my counselor, when I said I wanted to be a dentist, he laughed and was like, you understand that nobody from Bloomfield has ever went to professional school. What makes you think that you're going to be the first?
You didn't see something about like Hamburger U or something like that?
Yeah,
right?
he said the most that anybody can hope for that comes out of here is Hamburger U.
Just flipping burgers.
Right. And it's
What
easy.
a rock star counselor.
Well, yes, but it's easy to vilify him, but it was also he wasn't wrong, right? It was like he had no track record of like would it
no one else was doing it, so he was
right.
like these are the odds.
Exactly. So I don't know if it would have been generous of him at the time to be like, you could be anything that you want to be, when he had no point of reference himself. The metrics say otherwise. Nobody comes out of here and goes to professional school.
Just a realist.
Right. Yeah. So knowing that, what decisions do you want to make? So hearing that, it was like, okay, I've always been this person. We were laughing the other day because when we had this weekend, our Nexit weekend, I said, you guys, one of the things that is always me to my core is I always think that I'm the one.
Yeah,
like if there are odds to defy something, I think I'm going to be that person.
Right. Yeah. You're always willing to bet on you.
Yeah. I just always think that will be the case. Right. So
and you're very good at winning too on that front. I think it's very, very true.
And somebody has had to have done it before. Maybe not in your town, in your industry, which is why when we started building Thrive, we went out of industry because the thing that we wanted to build within dentistry hadn't been done the way that we wanted to do it. So we had to really go outside of industry because it's like, okay, well, maybe it hasn't been done here, but somebody somewhere is doing this at some level, or thinking this way, or is having a mastermind about it. Who are those people? Where are they? How do we get in those circles?
We've talked a little bit about these kind of like two choices that a person's faced with, and it's like, I don't like either one of those. And there's something else, right? There's this third option that gives you completely different perspective and trajectory. I want you to kind of delineate how that third option looks, or with the way we do it. I mean, you can even use Nexit as a reference for this, because I think we do it very differently. But you've got your counselor who's the realist. And I almost think back to like that generation, like our parents' generations, where, you know, it wasn't, you can do anything you want, Timmy. Like there was a realism, there was a practicality, especially like post-World War. It was like, we just got out of this mess here. Like, let's just like get back to stable, right?
Right.
So there's kind of that arm of realism. And then now there's this other side that is you can do anything you put your mind and your heart to. And you see these flashes upon your social algorithm of this practice and how beautiful it is. And you could do just veneers and like, right? You go across the algorithm, that's what you see. And it's pretty false, in my opinion. I think that is largely bullshit. So how do we reconcile those two things? How do you take the counselor and you can do anything you want, you could be an astronaut too, and how do you say like, society's been given these two things, we've got to find the other option? How do you do it?
It starts with being honest about who you actually are.
Okay, how do you do that?
So you have to ask yourself some hard questions. Okay, let's take kind of the model of dentistry that is so star powered filled that you're like, I could do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
ABBA.
Yeah.
Right? I want to fly to New York and Dubai and sleep on the jet.
Miami,
and
LA,
then,
London. Yeah.
Right? And then order a custom Ferrari. Like, that's fucking cool. Nobody's, right? That is dreamy. But if it's me looking at that, that is really dreamy. The honesty piece comes with, do me, have the ability to change time zones, get out, rock and roll, and perform at that level? I don't. Do I have the desire to do that? I don't.
Right.
Right? So you can see something and it can light something up within you. That's the part that you've got to be honest about, right? You want to stoke that fire, but the honesty comes from saying, okay, if I have, like, there's something about it that is magic. What are those pieces that are magic of that story that you can use to fuel your own dream, right? So it might not look exactly like that.
I gave a very unpopular talk at a conference. And I started the whole thing out, that's probably the reason why. But I gave this talk, and the first thing that I said was, just because I can doesn't mean you can. And just because I couldn't doesn't mean you couldn't. And I think that is a really important gauge. And the thing is, I wish more people said that. I wish more instructors, everything gets sold online as you can do this too. And I think you're really right. You probably can't. Most people probably can't because you're not meant to do that. That's not what you are. And I think we're so distracted from our soul's calling. That's what I call it. I think it really is. There's a pull on you. There's a design, a biological, chemical, psychological makeup to you, a spiritual makeup to you that is meant to go a certain direction. And we are tone deaf to it. We're so distracted by everything else being input, this constant stimuli. And one of the fun things about our workshop, and really the container as a whole, we talked about this earlier, but it's six spots, right? 6 docs, 2 weekends. So it's going to, there's a whole structure to it all. But in these 90 days, there's also like tons of one-on-one, right? So you're not part of this massive group trying to learn some whatever that with no curation. But the workshop itself is 3 docs. And we're pouring into those 3 docs and just completely transforming the way they perceive things. It's because of that. It's because they're able to see themselves very accurately.
That's it, right? That's why this to me is so special and so different, because we don't bring people into Thrive expecting them to look like you.
No.
Right? No. Everybody, the docs that are in here all have different skill sets. So it's not like, okay, in order to make the system work, you have to place implants, you have to do FMRs, you have to they don't even have the same skill sets as you, and you don't have the same skill sets that they do.
No.
And so that's the thing. It's like, okay, what is it that you want to build? And let's pull that thing out of you, and then let's throw gasoline on that.
Right.
That's why it's custom. And that's why you don't walk away feeling bad about yourself. Because I remember being in a Newton Fall lecture. And I was just like, this is the coolest thing that I've ever seen. I will never be able to do that. That will never be me. But I thought it was so beautiful and so cool. But I also wasn't the person running to the booth to like book a flight to Brazil.
Right. Yeah.
But I was the person that was like, wow, that was, right? It's amazing.
You and I have talked about this before. We've had discussions over what does contentment really mean, right? And it's a hard question for people, especially in this day and age, because you're just bombarded with things that you should want, right? And I love that line from Jurassic Park where I was like, just because we could, should we have? And the truth in that little nugget is ancient wisdom. You think about Adam and Eve in the garden, and it's like you have the whole thing, but there's this one you're not supposed to touch, and they're like, that's the one I want. It's a discontentment. Well, what is that really? I think the best way to describe it is actually a very recent interaction I had with Devin. Devin's been trying to get me to place implants, take an implant course for as long as I've known him. And I always told him no. And then the other day, he's like, I'm going to go do some CE with Greg. We're going to do this and the other. He's like, what do you want to do? And I mentioned a couple things. He's like, you really need to take an implant course. And he wasn't being a dick about it. It was just like, he really believes that I would enjoy that. And that, like, why would you not have that skill set? A person comes in missing a tooth, you can pop it in right then and there. Great production, great help to the patient. Why would you not do that? And I wrote to him and I said, I have a very clear direction of where I want to go as a clinician and what I want to do. I have zero interest in placing implants. And I had to say it that way. And the point is, I'm very content because I know who I am and what I want. And maybe contentment has more to do with your self-assessment than it does desire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because when you really do know who you are, there is a certain contentment that comes from like, I don't need that, I don't need that. Would it be great to make extra money, sink in an implant? Sure. And I'm sure that attracts a lot of people, and it would be great to help people this way, that, and the other. But if it's not really where you want to focus, then having the freedom to say no to something is actually a power. It's a superpower.
Well, one of the exercises that we did this weekend was magic comes from constraints.
Yeah.
Right? So we put a lot of
lot of constraints
in their businesses that is going to remove stuff that is irrelevant, which means that they actually get to focus. And that's when we get to turn an entire year's worth of work into 90 days.
Yeah.
Is by adding constraints.
Adding constraints. Yeah.
Right. So if you're off on the next rabbit hole and you're taking implants, it's like, okay, what is that? Not what is the course costing you? What is it costing you from building the actual vision that you set out to build because somebody talked you into this being a good idea?
Yeah. It's almost like the counselor was a lot of no's when you needed a few yeses. And then now today is a lot of yeses and you just need to be able to say no. And you got to, and it's knowing how to say both. And that's the third option, is knowing when to say no and when to say yes.
And that comes from like that internal strength, right? To your point of knowing yourself so well. When he was telling me no, it was like, nope, that may be true for you, but that's what you're saying is actually not relevant to me.
Yeah.
And when you're being offered an implant course, that is actually not relevant to me.
So there's a really interesting, I was listening to this podcast about this and I thought it was fascinating, where he talks about the energy reserves that we have. If they are quantifiable, you can amplify them in certain ways, right? Like we talked about a few podcasts ago, like really pouring into time with your friends and enjoyment, or time with your spouse and really having that intimacy. Like there's ways of amplifying energy, but in a sense, we have a quantifiable amount. One of the things that people will do in a situation like with your counsel, let's say, or with Dev saying like you should do an implant course, is it's not enough for them to say no. It's not enough for them to say yes. What they feel compelled to do is to justify or to defend or to attack that thing that's coming at them. And we see this a lot in our world today where people take things personally. Everything's triggering. It's like, if it's just not for you, just say no and keep going about your business. But we leak so much energy because we feel like we're being attacked by a thought or an idea or a repressive whatever. And instead, let that be its thing. Like, that is what that person thinks. That's good for you, counselor. That's what you have. I'm going to do something different. And then you poured all your energy and resources into doing what you needed to do. Imagine if you had championed a cause of like, well, I'm going to take down the hierarchy. We're going to tell everyone they need to be yes. And it's like not even all what your mission was supposed to be.
Right.
And now you're sidelined and sidetracked and fighting a machine that's like, why? Go build what you need to go build. We're not trying to change the machine of dentistry. That system is in place. We're trying to build a new one. And the new one is with all these docs that have a very different, unique purpose. And we're just given permission to go do that.
Yep.
Okay, so here's the question that we're going to have another podcast around this and we'll lead into it. But this is the question for you. You talked a lot at the workshop about systems versus goals and why those two things are different. And I'll let you get into it in the next podcast, but here's the question. As a person is essentially stacking skill sets that are not even sure what they have to do with things, it's really easy to get trapped in what the other skill sets are, that people outside of you have, versus giving any value to what you've acquired and your unique take on things. So what we end up doing is we end up being kind of everyone to everyone, right? And that dilutes a personal brand. So the question to you next podcast is going to be around how a person can assimilate all these kind of micro experiences and skills that they have and see purpose in that rather than it's not enough, right?
Okay.
So anyway, I'll see you in the next one, babe.
See you in the next one.
Thank you for listening and or watching the Dental and Mental podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or any others for that matter, feel free to tap that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple, Amazon, as well as Spotify. While you're there, why not leave us a review, up to 5 stars? And if you're on YouTube, go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know what topic you want us to discuss next.
If you like what you heard today and you want to be involved in the Thrive world from coaching to courses or just to connect with us, go to thethrivedentist.com.